one of those people we have to speak about that you spoke to and became friends with is a certain Axl Rose, well-known story of the two you guys coming together, and that's the formings of
Uh-huh.
the early stages of Guns N' Roses, and obviously you're a founding member and where the name comes from and all that sort of stuff. So talk to me a little bit
Yeah.
about those early days and meeting Axl and how all that came around.
Yeah. Well, I met Axel through Izzy, and I had met Izzy at the Roosevelt Hotel. He was playing in a band called Shire, and he was playing bass. And we were kind of like two peas in a pod. We just kind of had the same style, kind of street view of the Rolling Stones and Black Sabbath, right? Like both. And so we started hanging out, and he eventually moved into my mom's, and so we were kind of like roommates for like a year and a half. And he kept telling me about Axel, and so eventually I met Axel a couple times, um, just at like Izzy's ex-girlfriend's house and stuff like that. We would go over, and I met him like the first day he got here, and he was really nice, really friendly. But I hadn't heard him sing. It was just kind of like Izzy kept telling me, "You got to hear him sing. You got to hear him sing." So finally, I guess they had put together Hollywood Rose, and everything happened really quickly back then. It wasn't like a bunch of procrastination and auditioning people. It's like we had a good little circle of people to draw from, and they had put Hollywood Rose together, and I had my very early version of LA Guns. I was just out of high school, and so my band was called Pyrus, and they were Hollywood Rose. And then my girlfriend kept calling me Mr. Guns. That's how I got the name Tracii Guns. This girl Dina, and so Izzy's like, yeah, that's cool, Mr. Guns. Oh, Tracii Guns. Oh, so I always loved the Cheap Trick logo. So I stenciled L.A. Guns on like a blank record cover 3 times. And I showed it to Izzy. I go, hey, I'm going to change the name of the band to L.A. Guns, like that, Hollywood Rose. And he goes, that's cool. Yeah, yeah, do that, do that. So I was like, okay. So like ever since then, that was it. And I remember where I was standing in my mom's living room, showing him like, he's like, yeah, that's cool, kind of vibe. So that's how easy that came. And then we kind of did our first gig together, L.A. Guns, Hollywood Rose, at a place called Madam Wong's West, which is very close to the beach here in Santa Monica. And upstairs was Poison's first show. So it was a venue with like 2 rooms, kind of a thing. And Gilby Clarke was the sound man.
Oh, wow.
Um, so talk about, a very small group of people. But that was the first time I heard Axel sing was at that sound check. They were sound checking Hollywood Rose. And I was just like, damn, wow, like shit. And my singer was really good. This guy Mike Jagos, like he was like Klaus Meine, from Scorpions, kind of vibe. But Axel was more like Dan McCafferty, Robert
Mhm.
Plant, kind of Janis Joplin, kind of. He just had that thing, and I was like, shit. So we did the gig, and then I got to know Axel a little bit better. And Axel and I hit it off really well, just like Izzy and I had. And then so then Izzy got the opportunity to be in a band called London. And so Hollywood Rose was kind of on hiatus now because Izzy moved on to London. And then my singer got in a fight with our manager and he was gone. And we had all these gigs booked. And so I just asked Axel, hey, do you want to do LA Guns while Hollywood Rose is not doing anything? And it's like, yeah, of course, let's do it, you know? And that band, that LA Guns was crazy. Like that band was like all the metal, all the punk, all the attitude, you know, nobody posing, it was all about, Wasp and Van Halen and there was no real Rolling Stones influence in that version of LA Guns. It was just an all out attack. And Oli Bike, our bass player, he was for Merciful Fate.
Oh,
You
wow.
know, so it's like we were good. It's a great band, and no one's ever going to hear it except the people that saw it. So, anyways, we end up doing a gig with London at the Troubadour, and some shit went down, and Axl flipped out, and something to do with London, you know, detuning my guitars. It was crazy. And so my manager then, on the way home, fires Axl. That was the most unprofessional shit because Axl was on stage, you know, fuck these guys. We tore up a London poster, blah, blah, blah. So we get home. We're all living together at this time. And Axl's like, well, what are we going to do? Like, you know, just because he said I'm fired, like, you know, what does that mean? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what it means, you know. And so we had just gotten finished recording an EP, and we knew how to record. You know, we knew how to do an independent record. And so, like, the initial idea was that we would have a label, Guns N' Rose, and we would just write songs and record them and put them out that way. A lot like people do now.
Yeah.
You know, but this is way, you know, I was like 19, you know, I had braces on my teeth, you know, I was a child. And you know, but then that lasted for about 5 minutes. And, you know, I said, you know, that's a great band name, you know, and we agreed on that. And then I said, I bet Izzy bails on London after this whole thing. Cause, you know, Izzy was our friend, you know, he was just kind of doing them a favor or whatever. I go, I'll call Izzy in the morning and see if he wants to join Guns N' Roses, you know. And he goes, yeah, he'll do it. I know he'll do it, you know. So I called him first thing in the morning. I'm like, hey, what happened last night? He's just like, fuck those guys. I'm like, yeah, that's what I figured. So, anyways, you know, we got this new man, and we can do Hollywood Rose songs and LA Gun songs. And he's like, yeah, that's great. Let's do that. So that's how Guns N' Roses started. You know, that's how we put it together. It was a 10-minute conversation on the couch, you know, at our home in the valley. And, you know, I hung around for 8 months. We did a bunch of gigs. Um, and we just, the bottom line is we kind of changed as people in that 8 month period because we were getting a lot of attention as a great band. And it kind of became, everybody kind of went to their own room. You know what I mean? Like we weren't like this anymore. Everybody was kind of doing their own thing. Kind of like what happens normally when a band gets signed, goes on the road, sells a bunch of records, gets a bunch of money. Then you kind of figure out your individual life. But at that point, it's like that's all we had. That's all I had. Where hey, you're my best friends, and but everybody kind of scattered, and some shit went down that people can read about. Um, and then I was out. You know, I was just like, man, I'm not coming to rehearsal. I'm not doing this, and you know, they're like, well, we're gonna get Slash, and I'm like, yeah, of course you are. That's your guy. You know, that's gonna work. You know, and they did, and then I went back and I put together a new version of LA Guns, which ended up being what people consider the classic lineup. And the rest is history. I mean, that's the whole story.
The rest is indeed history for both bands.